Exhaust valve is fitted in the central bore of the cylinder cover. It is attached to the cylinder cover by 4 studs and nuts and forms a gas-tight seal. The burnt exhaust gases in the cylinder are expelled through the exhaust valve to the exhaust manifold. The valve seat is fitted to the bottom of the valve housing. The valve spindle passes through the spindle guide fitted in the bore of the valve housing. The valve spindle is of the mnemonic type. A vane wheel is fitted to the valve spindle at the bottom part, which rotates the spindle while the engine is running. The air piston and the hydraulic piston are mounted at the top of the spindle. The air piston is locked to the spindle by a 2-piece conical ring. It keeps the valve closed and acts like a spring. The hydraulic piston opens the exhaust valve when the oil under pressure acts on top of the piston. The hydraulic cylinder on top of the exhaust valve and the actuator mounted on top of the camshaft are connected by a high-pressure pipe. Oil is supplied to the hydraulic actuator through a non-return valve. The timing of the exhaust valve is controlled by the exhaust valve cam mounted in the camshaft. The exhaust valve is water-cooled. The cooling water flows from the bottom through bores in the valve housing and discharged from the top of the valve housing. A safety valve is fitted in each cylinder cover. When the pressure inside the cylinder increases above the maximum allowed peak pressure, the safety valve lifts and releases the excess pressure. The fuel valves, also known as fuel injectors, are fitted on the cylinder cover by 2 holding down bolts. The fuel valves atomize the high pressure fuel supplied by the fuel pump and injects into the cylinder. In this fuel valve, fuel oil is circulated when engine is standby. When the engine is started, the circulation of oil will stop and the pressurized oil is supplied to the cylinder. The fuel valve consists of a valve body, valve head and union nut. The non-return valve, thrust spindle with thrust spring and spindle guides are assembled inside the valve body. The spindle guide consists of spindle guide, nozzle, thrust piece and cutoff shaft. The spindle guide is assembled with a press fit. Cutoff shaft is pressed against the tapered valve seat of spindle guide by the action of thrust spring. The spring pressure is transmitted to the slotted thrust foot. The thrust spring determines the opening pressure of the valve. The non-return valve consists of housing, thrust piece, slide and spring. The non-return valve is assembled with a press fit. The slide of the non-return valve is pressed by the spring against the tapered valve seat inside the non-return valve. In this position, the head of the slide uncovers a small bore arranged for circulation purposes in the thrust piece. Indicator valves are fitted in each cylinder. It is a double-seated valve with a spring-loaded closing face. The combustion chamber of the cylinder is connected to the valve through a bore. It is used for taking indicator cards. The indicator valves are kept open while turning the engine or blowing through the engine with air. Any accumulation of oil or water in the cylinder will be expelled through the indicator valve when blown through with the air. This will indicate the cylinders which are having problems. The engine should not be turned with turning gear motor without opening the indicator valves. The starting valve is fitted on a cylinder cover. It is controlled by control air from the starting air distributor. It is kept in closed position by a spring. When the main starting valve is open, the starting air pipe up to the starting valve is pressurized. The control air from the air distributor acts on the piston of the starting valve. The starting valve opens and the air flows from the starting air pipe to the cylinder. After starting the space above, the air piston is vented through the vent pipe of the air distributor. Cylinder cover, also known as cylinder head, is tightened down against the top of the cylinder liner by means of nuts and studs. The nuts are tightened by means of hydraulic jacks. It seals the top end of the cylinder space. Sealing between the cylinder cover and the cylinder liner is obtained by means of a sealing ring made of mild steel. The cylinder cover is made of one piece and is provided with bows for mounting, such as exhaust valve, fuel valves, air starting valves, safety valves, and indicator valve. A cooling water space around the cylinder cover is formed by a cooling jacket mounted on the lower part of the cylinder cover. Another cooling water space is formed around the exhaust valve seat when the exhaust valve is installed. These two spaces communicate through a large number of oblique and radial cooling bows in the cover. The cooling water flows from the cylinder liner jacket to the cylinder cover cooling jacket and through the cooling bows to the space around the exhaust valve seat. The cylinder cover is made of forged alloy steel.